It is 10 minutes before 8 o'clock and a warm welcome back. Now, the initiation season has begun and authorities are now calling on parents to be on the lookout for illegally run schools. Now, this week alone, 21 boys between the ages of 12 and 17 were rescued at one such school in Pretoria. The Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, or Contralesa, says that 3 boys have died in the first week of the winter initiation season. Obed Bapela is the Deputy Minister of Co-operative Governance and Traditional Affairs and joins us now from our studios in Sea Point in Cape Town. A very good morning to you, Deputy Minister. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Simpiwe, and to all the viewers of SABC News.
You know, 3 boys have lost their lives already. And Deputy Minister, I hate to say this, but there's nothing new. Every single year we report about the loss of lives. So how do we move away from this, especially during the initiation season?
Regrettably so, and it's a very sad story that each year we lose our children, we lose the young, and we have plans that we will definitely be rolling out. However, we are waiting for the law that was initiated 3 years ago through the processes of the Cabinet. The National Assembly has concluded on that law in the 5th administration. Now that Parliament is back to action on the 6th administration, we hope therefore that the NCOP processes will then uplift the law so that it could then be prioritized, so that it is concluded before the end of the year. And next year when we come back, we have a bold law that can really deal with all illegal schools, because that's where the problem is and that's where the challenge is, so that we could then begin to save our children and ensure that this social cohesion and safer communities is achieved as one of the fundamentals that the President announced yesterday in the State of the Nation.
So surely one could perhaps create a list of the legitimate schools to look at. I mean, in other words, if it's not registered, then it's not legal, is it?
Well, if it's not registered, it means it will be illegal in terms of the new law. And it says that once any person starts a school without registering it, without being known who he is, whether he has the requisite knowledge of running such a school and the cultural elements of it, once that school exists and is not registered, it's going to be declared illegal. But the law has been very ambiguous in that particular area. Hence the new law, the customary initiation bill that is now going to go into the NCOP processes, will then say illegality means you will then be sentenced. And minimum 5 years, that's what we're proposing in the law, or maximum depending on other incidences that happens in that particular school. But just establishing an unregistered school, you will get a penalty of a minimum of 5 years. At least this one will then help us in stemming out all illegal schools, so that children can only go to those registered schools that are known in towns, in the cities, in the rural areas where traditional leaders are at the helm of the leadership, will then definitely do so. And Limpopo is also leading as an example today. No deaths have been recorded in the past 2 to 3 years in Limpopo. And other provinces can really just go to Limpopo and say, how did we do it? Even without the law, we just have to really take the best practices, take the lessons, and ensure therefore that we apply. But the illegal schools are no longer existing in Limpopo. Each time they are able to quickly rescue the kids and then take them to the right schools. And in the Eastern Cape, there's an improvement. Hence, we only speak of 3 deaths for now. And then I'm hoping and I'm praying that there's no more deaths that are occurring. However, they have been increasing on the de-establishment of the schools, rescuing the kids, and they've saved so many lives. 21 kids now are now safe in proper schools, and I hope this occurrence increases in the Eastern Cape so that we could stop the deaths of the initiates.
Minister, are there any cost implications perhaps on the registration of legitimate and legal initiation schools, or are they really expensive?
Well, look here, it's a voluntary activity and a practice that is cultural. There's no price attached to it. The only cost that occurs are the parents and the family's involvement. When the kid goes to such a school, you need to prepare cultural elements, customary issues, slaughtering of a goat. In other traditions, others, we don't slaughter anything. And then from there, then it's where kids going into the school. There's a nominal fee that you just pay for the school to keep its business. And then thereafter, your children goes through the culture, and then they are back again as initiates from a passage of being a boy to a man with all the cultural values that gets inserted or trained on them. And then indeed, we want such men, to arise out of the school so that they can take responsibility in society. So there's no issue of money being involved except those minimal elements that are customary and they are cultural.
I recall that there was a program where medical practitioners were to work with initiation leaders to avoid more deaths. So how is that going? Will it perhaps be encapsulated in the new law that is still under promulgation?
Well, we are emphasizing it, but we are also engaging traditional leaders. In Limpopo, they've embraced it in a way that those doctors who have been to the initiations themselves, who are from the mountain, are the only ones who are allowed closer to where the kids are so that they could then begin to look at issues. Because there are now new illnesses in our bodies. So some kids goes in there with asthma. They are able then to quickly treat the asthma problem if it is the cause of the deaths. And then also if there's any dehydration, they could quickly deal with such. But then the natural cultural way of doing things continues as a sacred element, but the doctors will be on site, they'll be there, and some they get involved also in the procedure. So we are saying to the traditional leaders and all people who are believing in the practice of initiation that let's embrace modernity in as far as our own culture is concerned. And we are emphasizing that in the Eastern Cape, we're still engaging with the traditional leaders in that part of the world. And I hope very soon they will also be embracing that modernity, saving lives, ensuring that culture does not kill, but culture is part of the instruments towards social cohesion and nation building.
And in the interest of embracing that modernity, should parents not be held legally accountable for their children? I mean, what responsibility should they take in this regard, and what should they be on the lookout for when they choose these initiation schools?
Well, in the new law, we are emphasizing the role of the parents, that they must know where the kids are. They must at all given time take the kids to the right people, to the right school. And then if there's any negligence on their side, they will also be punished by the laws. And I think there's a clause that then begins to say, should it be found that the parent was negligent, or the family, because most of the households now it's women-headed, and then the uncles must be involved because they are their own children too, according to the African culture. All of them must just get involved and ensure, therefore, that the children go to the right school, to the right person, to a known person, and then the leadership of the traditional leadership in the rural areas, and the leadership of the councils and councillors in the urban areas, also in the lower, bringing them on board, because people do no longer go back to their original places to go and practice culture. It has been expressed in the cities, in the towns, in the urban areas. We just have to bring that leadership element that has been missing and absent. That is why it is everybody's responsibility.
Mr. Bapela, we certainly hope that more pressure will be exerted on the authorities to make sure that this kind of law is promulgated soonest, so to avoid more deaths. But thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was Mr. Obed Bapela. He's the Deputy Minister of Co-operative Governance and Traditional Affairs, for talking to us about the beginning of the initiation season. And it's quite an interesting time because, there's so many deaths that we've been reporting over the past years about the loss of lives at these initiation schools. I mean, he talked about the legalization of such schools, and parents. These are some of the issues that parents should be looking out for about whether the initiation schools have been legalized or not. But it is 8 o'clock. Let's take a look at the top stories.